I'd say, in brutal honesty, I'm probably a very average athlete. And kayaking was something that I found a lot of solitude and peace in, and it gave me success that I wasn't necessarily experiencing in other areas of my life. Without having the success that I found in paddling, and that was from, you know, the mental health benefits to winning races. Without this, there are times where I actually wonder where the hell would my life have gone if I didn't have paddling, because it just fulfilled so many things for me.
I think Mum was definitely the main supporter for Mike when he was growing up.
He couldn't have done it without her. I think that's fair to say.
She loved it as well. Like, for her, it was a chance to chat with all of the other parents, and she'd enjoy like sitting on the bank with her little chair out and umbrella and having a natter with people. But she also loved being able to support Mike in a very tangible way.
And there was a time when Caroline's car constantly had a kayak on it, probably when Mike was 11 or 12 onwards. If Caroline's car pulled on the drive and it didn't have a kayak on it, you'd think, oh, where's the kayak today?
It did always have a roof rack on it, ready for once.
Caroline being a single mum of 3 kids, working a full-time job, studying on top of that, she very quickly became one of my heroes because she was so determined to give her kids a good life.
When I was 16, she would pretty much every other weekend, we'd be driving up to Nottingham or Reading or just anywhere around the country to start racing. It's funny, you know, these memories, you don't really think anything of them at the time, but they're the things that stick in your mind. And so, yeah, through kayaking, I actually got to spend a lot more time with Mum than I would have if I was doing anything else.
When Mum collapsed at the gym, I think they tried to call me first, and I missed the call, and I called them back, and I spoke to the paramedic. And I spoke to Mum, and she sounded like an old lady, scared.
I went to the A&E with Sarah Robinson first, because she drove up there.
We found her on a bed in a corridor. And I remember the nurse coming up to kind of just check that she was okay. And Mike had been on the phone and he was like, aortic dissection, aortic dissection.
By the time that I had got there, I could tell immediately that she wasn't right. She was bent over in a lot of pain. And so when I raised it to the nurse with regards to, are you aware that there's a familial history of aortic dissection? Everyone that I raised that with were like, yeah, we are aware that there's a history of aortic dissection, but we do not think it's that. Hello, my name's Mike. Now, I know the majority of you that are going to see this video will already know who I am, but there are some of you that I have never met before, so I thought I'd do an introduction video now, because in 5 weeks' time, I will have started my world record attempt kayaking around the UK, which I'm doing for these 2 aortic dissection charities in memory of my late mum.
When he said, I'm going to paddle around the UK and try and break the world record, I thought he was being naive. And I think we all did. We were like, have you thought about this? Like, are you sure?
Mike has been a huge fan of type 2 fun, as he likes to call it, which is, it sucks while you're doing it, but creates a really good story afterwards.
And if there's any potential life endangerment, spice it up. So much the better. To be fair, he's taken a long time to learn from them, but he's learned from them. And so all the stuff that happened with that type 2 front from a lack of planning, he's been working really hard to address that now. And so there's no one but him that can take control of it. And he is.
He's doing it for his mum. And I think that's his motivation, and where he previously would have given up, actually. the pain of that grief and the reason that he's doing it, you know, to spare people from feeling what he's carrying, is what's making him push through.
So we're in East Wittering now. It's about 5:20 a.m. and I'm heading to Swanage. And then if I'm feeling good, then I'm going to go from Swanage to Portland Bill, which will make the first day that I'm going to doing potentially the biggest day of the trip at about 110, 115k. It's been 2 years in the making, so the fact that the day has come feels good, anxious, nervous, but ready.
Honestly, it's lovely. We were expecting with the early start that it would be a quiet one, but there are a lot more people here than we expected, so it's fantastic to see the support.
With regards to the record attempt, the weather is so key, and so the perfect thing to do would be to wait for some high pressure and then predictable weather conditions, and then probably start right up on the east coast and get a tailwind all the way down to Cornwall. But I didn't want to do that, and the reason why is because this is a sentimental beach. This is somewhere my family used to come to in the summer holidays with family, friends, play on the beach, swim on the beach, fly kites. Because it has that sentimental value, it's why I feel very strongly about starting here. I think it's going to be hugely valuable. In fact, when I'm going through tough times, I know that I'm coming back to a beach that I know, rather than just a random place that I've never been to before and have no emotional attachment to. That's it. See you later. It's been a solid start, but difficult, but not necessarily for the reasons that I anticipated it to be. The messages and the support I've been getting has been a bit overwhelming, to be honest. It's lovely, but I feel very close to tears. Because it wasn't just Mum died, there's such a huge fallout in the aftermath of her death. She was just such a huge support structure for so many people. It's pointless for wishing for things to be different, but I'd literally kayak around the whole UK if it would bring her back. I'd do 2 laps, 3 laps. But it won't. So that's why I'm doing it. So other people will hopefully stand a better chance than she had. I've crossed, or I'm crossing the Severn Estuary right now, and I'm not going to get back, I'm not going to make land before nightfall. And I've forgotten to put my navigation light on, but I can finally see land It now makes sense to push on to Wales. I just need to make sure that the outgoing tide and that will switch around 10 o'clock doesn't sweep me into the Irish Channel. I just need to make Marlow sounds. If I can make Marlow, then I hope that means I can make the Irish coastline tomorrow, which means I get to see my auntie. It means I get to see people that I know. The hardest thing with this has just been the isolationity, but I do need to see the people that I love.
She had an intense headache, and so I kept pressure on her temples because she was very, very agitated.
Unfortunately, Mum's pain symptoms got worse and actually caused her to physically vomit. So the nurse actually had to come over and redress her and then put on a new gown and left. It was very obvious that she had facial droop and had developed significant weakness on her left side. That's when I went back to the nurse and said, look, she's had a stroke. The doctor needs to see her.
I think Mike would go up and he'd chat with someone, come back with no one, go up again 10, 15 minutes later, try and grab someone.
It took nearly an hour for the doctor to come after she had had a stroke. Only at that point that they had gone through that whole process, they were like, right, wait, there's a familial history of aortic dissection, and the treatment that we're going to suggest for managing the stroke would be contraindicated for an aortic dissection. So let's check that she's not had an aortic dissection.
I think that was probably around about 10 o'clock-ish. I think that's when it actually got entered into the notes, where it was a proper face-to-face instead of grabbing someone or mentioning it to someone in an ambulance.
And at that point, she went and had a CT for aorta and found that there was a huge aortic dissection in the aortic arch. To get here, I paddled, I think 15 or 16 hours from a place called Welcome in North Devon via Lundy Island into 22-mile-an-hour gusting headwinds. Doing that 110k paddle, I was really motivated by seeing family and the prospect of doing today as an Irish sea crossing. So I thought I was really snookered because I'd run out of water, food, everything, but thankfully, I mean, you can see the beach, it's an absolute maze of rocks, but thankfully I managed to kind of like come down and find them on this end of the beach. So Tris and John are known through paddling. Tris is part of my canoe club, and John is just like this effervescent character. He's a great guy, and yeah, they both reached out to join me on this paddle, which I am just hugely grateful for, because originally I was just thinking, sod it, I'll just do it all on my own, but I had no idea how psychologically demanding it would be just to be doing all of this solo. So little has gone to plan. I'm literally living day by day. I'm not even thinking about Scotland. I'm not even thinking about Ireland. I'm just thinking about this crossing at the moment. Today is the last of the really big crossings. Every other crossing I do will be shorter than this, or, you know, all the other estuary crossings, I can make them as long or as short as I want at this point. This is the only crossing that I cannot change the distance of.
This is getting hard now. We're, how long? 10k? 10k out. Sun's going down, it's getting cold, but Lammy's still a an absolute Trojan.
Getting over to Ireland is hugely significant, just because it means that I've rounded Cape Cornwall, I've done the Severn Estuary, and I've done the Irish Sea. That's about three things that I was worried about when I started this. So I'm ticking off things that I'm glad that are behind me.
That is Northern Ireland. Behind that headland is Cushendon. And I'm there. Wait, there is Scotland. This trip, although it's a beautiful day today, whenever you do things like this, you roll the dice with the weather, and the weather largely dictates what sort of experience you're going to have. But I'm on Scotland's doorstep and I haven't cracked yet. I don't intend on cracking.
So I've known Mike for many years, and there was a point at which Mike wanted some work, and being a builder, I offered him some work. In payment was a car.
One of the things as well, like for context with Robin, not only was he my boss at the time, but he's also an ex-Olympian kayaker himself, representing GB at the Seoul Olympics. And so he provided so much mentorship in so many different ways in my life, from not only just, trying to be a little bit less useless on the building site, but there was so much advice and guidance that he provided me in my athletic career.
I felt that Mike deserved almost that same pathway to be able to train, do a bit of work, get a bit of money, go on training camps, be the best canoeist he could be, or best kayaker he could be. And I never really thought I was passing on wisdom. I just talk a lot.
Do you know one of the things that stays with me is particularly when we're building, and there'd be something that'd be a bit awkward, and I'd be struggling with it, and you'd be like, are you going to let that defeat you? When you're having a good day, it's so easy to be like 80, 100k, yeah, whatever. Gosh, don't even think about it. I can leave and actually have had fun. Yeah. But
Type 2 fun.
Yeah, yeah. But when you're out there and you are, I'm sure it's not that dramatic, but you feel like you're fighting for your life.
Well, no, there is an element of that, because if it goes wrong, it goes wrong big styling. So each time you've got to make good decisions all the time, all the way through.
I felt very mentally flimsy and actually felt like I was starting to make some very bad decisions.
It will, but actually when you do get through it, when you get to the finish, which you will do, the mental map that you got and the mental strength that is going to be, it's going to carry you through the rest of your life.
So lovely to be met by Robin and Ali. They're like a second family to me. Seeing people like that is so nice, but it just creates this huge contrast between the loveliness of that experience and that situation, that meeting, to now being on the water. Armpits are so sore. I'm just very grateful. It's so pretty. It really does take the edge off. Now I'm over halfway, you really do start to think of home. And I really don't want to do this, but the mindset that forces me out onto the water is one of just sheer necessity. I feel quite physically weak. I'm in a lot of pain. I can feel my armpits stinging.
If I'm being perfectly honest, I'm being driven a little bit by fear and what it would be like to quit at this point, and thinking that is just the last thing I want to do. I think about Mum a lot when I'm on the water. The reason why I'm here is because of her. A lot of the time I'm just trying to comprehend her death, if I'm being honest. I find there are moments where I'm so detached from my experience that I almost forget that she's gone. I still occasionally experience this sinking feeling. It's like, oh, it's like this punch in a gut that she... And this realization that she's actually gone. So after the aortic dissection's diagnosed, they needed to arrange a transfer to a trauma centre that would be able to do the surgery. For someone in Mum's situation, I think the target is for a 16 to 18 minute wait for an ambulance to turn up, and that should be a paramedic and an anaesthetist. Unfortunately, we waited nearly 2 hours.
I've never seen Mike so distressed. You know, such a sense of having no control, such a sense of knowing that something needed to be done but not being able to do it, and just watching his mum deteriorate.
Eventually, the ambulance came and she was transferred to this trauma centre. As soon as we got there, someone took charge of the situation, told us exactly what was going to happen.
We felt a relief. I actually read messages to my friends, and I said that we were tentatively hopeful, and then we slept in the family room, taking it in turns to cry quietly.
After the surgery, when they tried to bring her round, they actually found that 90% of the right side of her brain had died. We were put in the awful situation where we had to make a decision with regards to what was the most humane thing to do. Do we ask the neurosurgeon to proceed with surgery to preserve existence, or do we try and action what we know Mum would have wanted, which was not to cling on to life for the sake of and it was a horrible decision to make, but I know that if Mum had gone through that and had come out the other side being trapped in a body that she didn't want to be trapped in, that was arguably a worse outcome than losing her.
Yay!
Hello. How's it going?
Look at that face. It's going good, dude.
How you feeling?
Oh, I'm ready to move on now. This chapter of the trip is just forcing me to exist in limbo. You know, it's been teasing me with the conditions. Like, Mike, oh, the conditions are looking good to go on your birthday. Turns out on the birthday, I get everything ready. No, they're not good enough. And it's just this constant state of
Waiting.
waiting.
Have you found it's been good for your processing?
Do you know what? I actually think probably the biggest thing is processing pain. And it made complete sense to me at this point, because I was doing something, or I am doing something, where I'm exposing myself to pain and discomfort on a daily basis. And I think one of the things that I found on this north coast was that I had this sudden realization that I didn't need to hold on to my pain anymore.
And if I kept holding on to the pain of day 4, day 5, day 6, then I wouldn't ever make it on the water for day whatever it will be when I finally get back on again. And that kind of realization I felt also transferred towards what we had gone through with Mum.
Yeah.
What we experienced was so horrible and something I would never want to repeat, but there were elements that I held on to. You know, is almost not accepting that she's gone, not accepting that I can have permission to move on from the painful elements of her death. Because I related moving on from the painful elements of her death as moving on from grief, and therefore accepting that she's gone, and which in my head was almost a fear of losing her again. It's almost just given me permission to go into this next phase of my grief where I can actually just remember Mum for who she was to us. And
Yeah. I get that.
Dude, just, you know, I think you'll come away from this and I think you should feel like you've done something special and something important.
Because you have.
yeah.
When I stop and think, so when I go out on the water on a Saturday evening,
And we do like a training session and I'm paddling along and I'm like, wow, this is hard work.
get the Strava up and I'm like, I've done 10K.
Yeah.
And then I think about you and I think about like how far it is that you are actually going on a day-to-day basis and what it is that you're facing. Like, incredible respect, dude. Like, you deserve to hold your head up high. Yeah, I don't think that there are very many people who'd be able to plug through it the way that you have.
No, I really appreciate that, Kate. I'm just so in the mindset that this needs to get done. And so every day now is a day closer to home, a day closer to seeing family, a day closer to being in my bed, a day closer to having a shave. Also, with regards to this record attempt, this record is long, long, long gone. If I'm being honest, I stopped thinking about the record after about day 2. The reason why I took on this record was to get the publicity to help raise funds and awareness for the charities that I'm doing this for. And so for me, the record wasn't ever really that important. It was something that would have been lovely to have got, but it would have denied me the journey that I've been on, because I would have not been to half the places that I've been to. I wouldn't have been able to have taken the time to have the conversations and meet the people that I've met. And it would have denied me some of the richness of the experience that I've had. And so I'm just happy that I kept going and I haven't given up just yet. Right, last day today, sun shining, leaving New Haven now. 70k to do to get home.
That all-encompassing project that has literally dragged him through the last 2 years, that was what he needed.
I think his mum would be really proud of him. I think we're all really proud of him, and his mum would wear what he's doing like a badge of honour.
I think Caroline is going to be in the back of the boat with Michael. She'll be behind him
The whole way.
and telling him he can do this.
His hands will be bleeding, like he'll be cold and wet, but he's got a solid bedrock of mental toughness and determination that will get him through to the end, one way or the other.
If I'm being honest, I've wanted to give up since day one. I think there was this moment when I was paddling to Portland Bill in the dark, my navigation light pointing in my face, not being able to see sod all. I mean, what the hell have I taken on? And it didn't really get better from there. But there are two things that kept me going. And the most important one was the promise that I made to my mum and myself. And I knew I wasn't going to quit. But my God, I didn't realise how much I was going to rely on the support of all you guys. And just seeing you all here today, to be honest, truly overwhelming.
It was cathartic. I had 2 months of being able to process the loss of my mum, and not only process the loss of my mum, but interpret my life's journey in a way that you rarely ever get that time to pause and reflect. For me, this has been a pilgrimage through grief, loss, and a lack of personal direction in my life. And it has affected every corner of my being. And so it's been more than just a fundraiser, more than just a paddle. I feel pilgrimage is probably the closest term that I can come to describe what it feels like I've been through. And I feel like everyone should go on one.